Why hello logic class, how are you today? Hope you are doing well. Today we are going to do logic lesson 54 part 2, defining words. Okay, so we went over the lesson in part 1. Today I'm just going to review what we learned about defining words, and then I'm going to go over some of the problems with you in your homework. Okay, so the main thing you're going to be doing for this lesson is answering questions in your book. All right, so we'll do some of them in class. By the way, I apologize for how my video, the lesson that I have been saying on my video lessons have not been the same as what is on Teams. Sorry for the confusion. It's I got out of kilter, out of sync somehow, and I kept doing the wrong lesson on the video from what I was actually putting in Teams. So anyway, I'm going to try to get that fixed, try to get that together, and hopefully from now on it will be right. Okay, so lesson 54, definitions. So we're going to review, all right? What are the rules for definitions? What are the rules for definitions? What is rule 1? Do you remember? Rule 1, as much as possible, the definition should contain the essential primary characteristics, not the secondary characteristics of a term. Okay, so primary characteristics, not secondary characteristics. Okay, so don't use characteristics that are not necessary in a definition. All right. Rule 2, definitions should not be circular. So you can't use the word in the definition of the word. So you can't say something like an addict is someone who is addicted to something. Okay? Can't do that. That's a circular definition. Rule 3, definitions should not be too broad or too narrow. It has to be precise, right? You can't define a woman as a female because there are females that are not women. Female dogs, for instance. Okay? You can't define a woman as someone with long hair because not all women have long hair and there are some men that have long hair, right? Okay? So the best way to define the word woman would be to say an adult female person, right? An adult female person or human being or something like that. Rule number 4, definitions should prefer positive comparisons to negative ones. So you should try to stay away from saying what something is not. Okay? To define a tree, you should not say a tree is not a cow. Right? That doesn't help you a lot. Don't use negative comparisons unless that particular word its whole identity is based in what it is not, right? So there are some exceptions to that. Something like a pacifist is someone who does not believe in going to war. A lie is a statement that is not true. Those kind of things. If the whole identity of it is wrapped up in what it is not, then you would use a negative comparison. Otherwise, don't do that. Okay? Definitions should be clear. Don't use vague definitions. There are certain words that can have a variety of definitions depending on how you use them. You need to make sure you're you're very precise with your definition. The definitions should avoid emotive language. So don't manipulate with emotions. Again, the example that we used was a Democrat is a power-hungry tyrant who loves to kill babies. Okay, that's an emotive definition that uses emotionally manipulative language, and you want to avoid that. Rule 7, definitions should define the terms as the correct part of speech. All right, so in your definition, you don't want to change to a different part of speech. So if you define the word scold, you wouldn't say a lecture intended to improve someone's behavior. Okay, because scold is a verb. And if I say a lecture intended to improve someone's behavior, I'm defining a noun. Now, if it was the word scolding, he got a good scolding, then it would be a noun, and you could define it that way. But it's not. It's scold. Without the ing, it's a verb. And the definition needs to be a verb. Okay? And again, often when you have the word when, beginning of a definition, not always, but often that means you're changing to a different part of speech. Okay. All right, so take out your book and turn to page 255. Now you should have already done the questions on page 254 and turn them in. I haven't looked at the last group of assignments that came in the folders. I'm hoping there's a bunch of logic homework in there because I'm still missing a lot of logic homework. Remember guys, incompletes really hurt your grade. So please get that logic homework turned into Mr. Weaver. Okay, not just hitting the turn in button. Do it, you hit turn in, fine, that's great, but you've got to get the hard copy in that folder. Okay, open up the folder, stick it in. Okay, tear it out of your tablet, stick it in the folder, bring the folder to Mr. Weaver so I have it, because I can't count it as complete unless I get the hard copy. All right? Okay. Page 255. So let's do a few of these. Let me read the directions. This is called identify. All right? So at the top of page 255 it says, see if you can identify which of the 7 rules each of these definitions breaks. Excuse me. Be sure to explain how the definition breaks the rule or rules. So a definition can break more than one rule. Now if you get one, that's fine, as long as you get one of the right ones. Some of them only break 1, some of them break 2. I don't think there's ever more than 2. So all you have to do is get one of them right, okay? Choose one rule that it broke, get that one right. Okay, so number 1, the word is rotation. The definition is the act of rotating. Rotation, the act of rotating. What rule does this break? Think carefully. I want you guys to get this, okay? This is one of the easier ones. Which rule does it break? Does it contain the essential primary characteristics and not secondary characteristics? Is it circular? Does it use the same word in the definition as the actual word that's being defined? Definitions should not be too broad or too narrow. That's rule 3. Definitions should prefer positive comparisons to negative ones. Rule 4. 5. Definitions should be clear. 6. Definitions should avoid emotive language. 7. Definitions should define terms as the correct part of speech. Which one is it? I already probably gave it away. It is rule 2. This is a circular definition. So in the first blank, under the rules that it broke, you want to write down rule 2, right? And then in your explanation, you want to put something like the definition is circular because it contains the word it is trying to define. All right? Let's see. Let's do number 2. The word is dog, and the definition is a floppy-eared animal. Sorry, a floppy-eared carnivorous animal. Okay? Now, none of these definitions are good definitions. They all break a rule or two. So which one does this break? Any idea? So let's look at it. As much as possible, the definition should contain the essential primary characteristics, not the secondary characteristics of a term. Ooh. Ding! Rule 1 is broken. Floppy ears on a dog is a secondary characteristic, right? Yes. Not all dogs have floppy ears. You don't have to have a floppy ears to be a dog. Besides, there are some human beings that have floppy ears. No, I'm just kidding. That wasn't nice. I don't know. I don't know of any human beings that have floppy ears. But there's other animals that have floppy ears that are not dogs. So that doesn't belong in the definition, right? How about there's actually another rule that is broken as well. Does anybody know which one it would be? Let's start over again. Well, we already know that rule 1 is 1, so let's go to rule 2. Definitions should not be circular. No, it doesn't break that one, right? Rule 3, definitions should not be too broad or too narrow. Cha-ching. Too broad. Floppy-eared carnivorous. Okay? Dogs are not the only animals that are carnivorous. Can you think of another animal that eats meat? I can think of a few. Maybe a lion or a bear. I don't know. Lots of other animals. Okay? All right. So that's number 2. So yeah, so it breaks rules 1 and rule 3. Got it? Awesome. So in your explanation, you want to say something like this definition breaks 2 rules. The term floppy-eared is not an essential characteristic of a dog. Furthermore, not all dogs are floppy-eared. Also, the term carnivorous animal is too broad, since there are many carnivorous animals besides dogs. Okay? So something like that. Let's go ahead and do number 3. Pause the video and do number 3 so we don't get out of order. Okay? So pause the video, do number 3, and then restart, and we're going to jump down to number 4. Got it? 1, 2, 3, pause. Okay, ready to go again? Start it back up. All right. Number 4. The word is starvation. The definition is not being fed. Which rule does this break? Number 1, as much as possible, the definition should contain the essential primary characteristics, not the secondary characteristics of a term. No, I don't think it breaks that one. Number 2, definition should not be circular. Does it use the word starvation in the definition, or starve, or starving, or any form of it? No, doesn't break that one. Number 3, definition should not be too broad or too narrow. No, well, you could maybe make the argument that this is a little too broad. Just because somebody is not being fed enough doesn't mean they're starving. So the book doesn't say this actually, but I would kind of tend to say that you could probably put number 3 in there as being one definition that's broken as well. But since the book doesn't do it, let's not do it. Okay, let's just skip over that and forget that. Okay, now rule 4, definitions should prefer positive comparisons to negative ones. Is this a negative comparison? No. Definitions should be clear. It's pretty clear. Number 6, definitions should avoid emotive language. It's not really emotive language. Rule number 7, definitions should define the terms as the correct part of speech. Cha-ching! It changes the part of speech. Did you catch that? Starvation. Not being fed. Not being fed is the definition of a noun. Sorry. Not being fed is the definition of a verb. Okay? If you would say starve, then you could say not being fed. I still don't think it's a great definition, but anyway, it would be the right part of speech. Starvation is a noun, so it needs to be defined as a noun. Something like the state of not being fed enough, or yeah, something like that, right? Okay, so those are all that I'm going to do with you, so go ahead and do the rest of those. Go on page 256, you want to finish your identify and then do the section that says create. In that one, you're supposed to define a word and you're supposed to give your own definition first and try to make sure you don't break any of the rules when you give your definition. Okay? And then you take out a dictionary, or you can use a dictionary online, and look the word up and give the dictionary definition and see how close it is to yours. Okay? Now, sometimes dictionaries have several definitions, so find the one that is closest to yours, right? So that's create, page 256 and 257, and on to 258. And then on 258, there's a section called answers. It's an argument analysis. All right. So first of all, for number one, it says, how would you define the word friend? So you write down your definition for the word friend. Then you read this conversation that takes place between Julie and Tiffany, and they have an argument about how to define the word friend. Okay? And then you answer the questions about their conversation on pages 259 and 260. Okay? At the bottom of 260, there is a section called deduction in action. That will be extra credit. Okay? So if you want to go ahead and do that, you put some thought and time into it, I can give you some extra credit for that. Okay? All right. Awesome. Keep up the good work. Talk to you next time.